Hey, it's Captain Matt, Boat Buyer's Secret Weapon, author of the book Boat Buyer's Secret Weapon, available everywhere books are sold. And we've got another boat market update. It is February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day. This is just a coincidence, but we've got the spring 2025 market update for you. We're going to start where we start all of these by looking at boats on the market. So you can see I've gone ahead and I've been searching for a couple years now, all these different numbers. I decided to start putting it into a spreadsheet format, so we're going to do it a little bit different. By the way, this is brought to you by our Boat Buyer Secret Weapon boat loan partners. If you're looking to buy a boat and you're looking to finance, we've got a number of partners that we work with, and based on the information you tell us about what you're looking for, the type of boat, your credit profile, your location, your down payment amount, all of that information, we try to match you to the best dealer that's been sorted based on what I think is most important, this 5-star customer service and great rates. And you have a dedicated loan expert that you work with when you match it. So if you're interested, just go boaterssecretweapon.com/boat loan. It'll take you to this page, fill out the information. We'll do our thing in the background, direct you to the right lender, and let you take it from there. And I will also personally check in with you to make sure things are going well for your process. So let's dive in. We've been monitoring for all these different segments for a long time. So let's take a look in a more easy to understand format. So I decided it was finally time to do this. So we're looking here at aged inventory. So what does the market look like? Now, because the best source of this is really Boat Trader to see what's listed online, it's not 100%. Because not every unit's listed on Boat Trader, but it's pretty accurate. It's a pretty good indicator of where things are. So if we look at the overall boats, so 23s, we've got in November, we had 6,100. Now here in February 13th, we're down to 4,300. This is nationwide in the US, okay? If we look at 24s, we had 17,000, and now we're about 13,000. So we moved 4,000 of those over a 3-4 month period in the winter time. Boat shows are just happening, so a lot of those probably have deposits on them, but they haven't been taken off the market yet because they haven't been finalized. And then the 25s, we know 25 started rolling in around August, and they continue to hit the dealers' lots. There were 13,000 in November. Now we've got 18, almost 19,000 here in February. So if you look where the market has gone by percentages, you can see 17% were 23s in November. That's down to 12%. So that's moving through the marketplace. 47% in 24, that's moved down to 36%. And then what we would expect is 25s have become a larger portion because more are hitting the market. More of the 23s and 24s are moving through. And if we do the same thing in the major segments that I support, that my content's based around, Pontoon, seeing a very similar with 50% now being 25s, down to 35% for 24s, only 14% in 23s. Wake boats, a very interesting market with what happened to Tommy's and Malibu. If you haven't watched that video, you can check that out. One of the biggest the biggest Malibu dealer went bankrupt, sued Malibu. Malibu put a message out countering them being sued and their accusations, kind of a back and forth. So that's messed up the wake boat market, which only does 7,000 to 10,000 boats a year. And you can see the number that were sold in 2023 of each of these categories. So 9,700 new wake boats were sold in 23. Well, we're still at 40% of 24s, 15% of 23s, and we're at 46% for 25s. Center console market's one of the better ones, only 9% of 23s. Most of those were kind of different style center consoles, really small, different materials. That's making up most of those. 34% on the 24s, 57% on the 25s. That's the highest rating for 25s. And then aluminum fishing, again, really low on the 23s, 40% on the 24s, and 52% on the 25s. So we'll come back to this data. We'll reference it in my recommendations and my predictions. But just know the 23s and 24s are moving through. I would venture to say when I do this in March or April, I might do an early one that we're going to see a lot more of those 24s and 25s moving through the marketplace, because at the boat shows, the dealers are really going to be pushing. Manufacturers are going to be putting incentive money on those. And I've talked to several dealers that have moved 23s that have just been killing them on the interest and curtailment payments and driving them nuts. So I mentioned the Tommy's debacle. Tommy's, the last post they had was from October 28th, 2024. They were up to 55% off MSRP. Well, in May of 2024, they filed bankruptcy. October 28th is when their floor plan, and they said, hey, sell what you can. We're taking the rest. From what I understand in the marketplace, most of their units have moved through the marketplace. So what happens in a situation like this, and it's happened on a smaller scale for some other dealers as well, is once the floor plan company says, okay, that's enough, we're taking our inventory back, what they do is they typically find a dealer or an auction house, but it's typically a dealer, to buy it at a reduced price and then sell it. So that's what happened at the probably November, early November is when that happened, if there were any pieces of inventory left. But Tommy's was really aggressively trying to move that through, which really brought down that wake boat segment. And, kind of, there was some infighting within the wake boat community of dealers selling comparable boats, saying, hey, Malibu's not going to uphold the warranty on those if Tommy goes out of business. And you can see warranties are in effect. So it was kind of an interesting thing. If you're shopping for a boat, grab that Boat Buyer's Toolkit. If you're new to the boating world, just checking this out, the Boater Boot Camp is for you to learn more about boating. So if we look on the used side, so that was all new. That's new inventory. We did the same thing on used inventory. We've been doing it for a long time. I'm putting the numbers in a more easy to read spreadsheet format. So if we look at the numbers at a total, used boats 200 miles from my zip code here in the Carolinas, which encompasses freshwater and saltwater. So I'm about 200 miles from the coast. So it's going to incorporate those boats as well as going another 200 miles inland. And it really gives us a good look at the overall market, which represents a good bit of the boating industry. But used 2,036 in December of 23, 2,059 in July, in November of 24, 2,100, and now we're at 2,261 here in February. So we are seeing a slight tick up, 10% more boats on the market from December of 23. Kind of makes sense because we know some of those COVID buyers are getting out, but it's not like a 50% increase, right? That's what a lot of people were waiting for, is all those COVID buyers are going to say it's too expensive. They're not using their boat. Activities are coming back online, baseball and softball and travel around the world. It's happening, but on a little bit smaller scale. It's a lot more anecdotal from when I talk around the industry than what we're actually seeing in the numbers here. And we just started tracking it based on the type of boat. So I'm going to do that same search in the type of boats, and we're going to monitor that going forward in future updates to see if there's a trend within the segments. And then we look at price drops. So price drops, we got 2,200 boats, and there were 220 that dropped the price. In the listing, right? They had it listed at 50,000. They dropped it down to 48. That's compared to 314 on a few fewer boats. That was in November. So we remember we got the seasonality of the industry that comes into play as well. But I thought that was interesting. And then again, we're going to track that going forward based on segment. So as you know, in the last report, this is the data in the boating industry is getting harder to come by. They are now, as of January 1st, you have to pay $1,800 a year to get access to the data that I've been using to help put some of these together, some pieces of it. So one, that's why we've got a sponsor with the boat loans. I do make a small percentage if you use them. You get the same rate, but I do make a small percentage. It helps me invest to continue to provide this level of information. The other option was to charge for it and put it behind a paywall. I didn't like that option, but something if we need to, we may have to go that route. So things that we're hearing in the industry is dealers on trade-ins. They're staying away from too old, mechanically questionable, and that don't fit the market. So if they're a center console dealer, they're not gonna do a wake boat, right? If they are specialized in pontoons, they may not do an old cruiser. Okay, so they're going to be more cautious on what they're bringing in, which means if you're trading a boat in, don't be offended if they say we're not going to take your boat, or they give you a really low trade amount. Just means that that dealer might not be interested. They're also being conservative on trade numbers. So the market is in a weird place right now. Economic indicators, some are positive, some are negative. The inventory levels are leveling out to more comfortable levels, but there's still, hey, any little thing that can happen in the world overall, in the U.S. economy, with the tariffs, the negotiation that Trump is doing and using the tariffs as leverage, anything goes wrong there, it could tighten the market again, and dealers don't want to be caught with their pants down putting too much money in boats. Which means one of the recommendations I have for you is if you do have a boat, maybe try to sell it yourself. Maybe try to use their brokerage service. And you can see dealers are doing that same thing, offering brokerage service where you still own the boat, but they're using their network, their database, their salespeople, their time, their money, their effort to help sell your boat. You can ask whatever you, within reason, ask more for it than what they would give you on trade. And you get the upside, just may take a little longer and may take you some time to get your new boat versus the convenience, but something to consider. What's happening in the macro economy? Well, let's look at what is happening with dealers and manufacturers on the publicly traded. This is the only information I have available. OneWater, which owns Legendary, Singleton, Rambo, they keep their brands branded what it was in their local market area, and it all rolls up in OneWater. Well, they had a loss of $14 million in the first quarter, which in the boating world is towards the end of the year. And that was reported on January 31st, 2025. So one of the largest dealers reported a $14 million loss. MarineMax, the largest dealer, report lower sales and revenues and profit amid muted demand in Q1 2025. That was from the 23rd of January. So on the dealer side, they're feeling the squeeze. They're selling fewer units typically at lower margins, and it's hitting their profit. MarineMax still reported a profit, so they weren't at a loss like OneWater was, but it was, I think it was like an $18 million profit if I remember right, but it was lower than what they had been year over year. Now, if we look at the manufacturer side, you can see Brunswick, sales down 18% for Brunswick, but they're optimistic for 2025. They're always optimistic. They're very seldom as a public company like the sky is falling. And then we've got Malibu with Malibu, Axis, Cobalt, Pursuit, Maverick, Cobia, Pathfinder, Hughes. They say the outlook for the full fiscal year of 2025 is softer retail market demand, positioning our wholesale inventory to match the demands, and prioritizing a disciplined approach to managing dealer inventory. Remember what I talked about Tommy's and Malibu? Well, they're saying that kind of was a problem for us. So we're going to try to help our dealers manage their inventory and us offering them inventory and try to find that happy medium. So that is a big push for manufacturers. And I talked to the president of Barletta Boats at the Atlanta Boat Show, I think it was. Talked to him for maybe half hour, 45 minutes or so about the industry and what's going on. And he said they've been really focusing on dropping their production down to match where the demand they kind of see it being. They don't want to be too low where they miss sales, but they don't want to be too high where they're over putting too much inventory on their dealers. So Malibu saying that same thing. And then we've got Marine Products, which is Chaparral Robalo. Net sales decreased by 33% year over year. Net income was down 21% year over year, and the continued soft order flow. So they're not seeing, and that's stern drives and center consoles in that market. So we're seeing everybody being hit, but making adjustments. It's the thing about the boating industry is the manufacturers have to deliver the right amount of boats. The dealers have to order the right amount of boats, and they kind of fight. The manufacturers don't make money unless they're building boats. Dealers don't make good profits if they have too many boats or too few. So finding that right level where they can match up is critical, and they're figuring that out. They're doing a much better job this year, from what I'm hearing in the industry compared to what they did in 24 and even late 23. Okay, so what's going on in the macro economy? Well, inflation higher than expected. We're still having some inflationary concerns. Be interesting to see what Trump does and the tariffs and his, trying to improve the level playing field of the U.S. and our trading partners, friends, and good close allies and others, and how that's going to play out. He's playing Trump hardball with the negotiations. If you read his book from the '80s, you know his playbook, right? It's what he does. Consumer optimism is it's going down slightly since December and January. You can see it's down 5.4 points to 104. I don't really know what that number means, but it's down a little bit from December. December was down a little bit from January, or what's the month before December? November. Expectation index is 83.9, fell 2 points, almost 3 points. 80% is a signal of a recession ahead. So we're still above that. I think the change in the administration is probably a good thing, but the conversation around tariffs that the other side is doing, I think, is causing concern. Even in the boating industry, you'll hear the president of CorrectCraft, Bill Jurgen, talking about, hey, this could really mess us up. Lens Cove Lessons in Boating just did their market update the other day, and he's talking there in Canada. He's like, hey, if these tariffs hold, boats will be more expensive in July than they are right now. So it's something that a lot of people are talking about, both sides of the aisle. And then jobless claims. Well, jobless, it's strong, but it's kind of little blips, reversing the previous 2 weeks rise. The market is strong starting 2025. You can see some of the numbers on the unemployment. What I really like as an indication are the Google trends. What are you, the people that are watching this video, what are you doing looking for boats? And if you look, the overall trend is this purple line, significantly down. And then I'm trending this red line off of where we currently are. So this is February 13th. I did this yesterday. And this number was a 12, okay? This number right here in the corner. Last year, that number was a 17. If we go back to that same date and time in 23, that number was in the low 20s, and it was in the high 20s here. It was in the 30s here in 21 or 2020 and 2021 was right about 30. So we're seeing that trend continue to go down. Not great news for the industry, but we'll see what happens. It's also been an extremely cold winter around most of the country. We had 10 days of freezing temperatures, which is unusual here in the Carolinas. So maybe that had an impact. Again, we'll see what happens in March, April with that trend, and see how the consumer market responds. The used boat, this is just boats for sale. I looked at the used boat. It was almost identical in shape and trend line, so I didn't even show that. So my projections. Here's where we're at. It's mid-February. Weather's starting to warm up here in the south, and it's going to continue to get better. Early spring, it really is going to be a great time to buy. I talked about the 2023s and 2024s moving through the market. Well, they're going to be gone. My gut tells me that they'll probably be gone Memorial Day-ish. Now, when I say gone, I mean like most of the inventory, and the ones that are going to be left are the yellow boats and the ones that have some weird option, or the dealer really didn't take care of it. They used it as a demo and put a lot of hours on it. So the springtime, before it really warms up and we get heated season, that really starts around April 15th, tax time. That tax day and after is when I see the boat market selling started. Your boat show season kind of heats you up for a little blip, and then it slows down again until we hit that April 15th timeframe. Used prices, they're going to continue to come down, but remember that seasonal uptick. Demand is low in the wintertime. You saw the Google trends. As it picks up, well, what that means is prices hold a little bit firmer for dealers, for private sellers, because there's more demand. And you saw by the used boat numbers, similar supply. The supply doesn't drastically adjust. So as warmer weather approaches, those numbers will firm up, but the overall trend will continue to be more down. More manufacturers' incentives, but here's the thing about manufacturers' incentive. Unlike in the winter, where they were everywhere, if you went to a dealer site, you got bombarded with rebate messages on Facebook and Google. Now, those incentives, are only going to be found if you walk in and talk to the dealer. If you are having a conversation about a specific boat and getting to the negotiation conversation, then they're going to say, I think we can get some money from the manufacturers, but it's not going to be publicly advertised. So if you see a boat that you like, it's a 23 or 24, you've got to engage the dealer, maybe even go walk into the showroom face to face, nose to nose, toes to toes, so that you can ask about, hey, can the manufacturer contribute anything to, this? Can we get some extra incentive money to help make this deal work? I'm serious about buying a boat, but it's got to be a great deal. Again, make sure it's the right boat. Don't just go after the best deal. If it's not the right boat, then it doesn't matter the price. It's too much. Interest rates are still going to be around that 7-8%. You saw with that inflationary concern, that kind of put some pressure on the Fed fund to not drop rates like their plan was. So we'll watch that and continue, but I don't see a major change either way with interest rates. Some dealers, like Tommy's, we had one local here that was selling boats out of trust and went out of business. A guy I knew and was unfortunate. We're going to continue to see that happening. Not a ton, but we are going to continue to see some dealers go out of business. So be cautious. Make sure if the dealer you're buying from has a bunch of 23s and it seems like they're short-staffed and it seems like things aren't going good, well, if buy that boat knowing they may not be there down the line. Could be a great deal, could be worth it, but just understand that that's going to happen. And if you need support, maybe saving that extra $2,000 isn't worth it. I don't know. It's up to you. But remember, that's likely to happen, in a few instances. Not going to be a mass going out of business, but it will happen. Some manufacturers, I can see it happening as well, that they're going to cutting production for sure. But I can see some manufacturers closing down shop as well. We've seen it happen with Blue Wave and Silver Wave. We've seen BRP put Manitou and Aluma Craft on the market. Say we're going to have these sold by the end of 2025, hopefully November, I think they said. Don't know what's going to happen there. So those are things that I see happening. Again, not a mass scale, but I see some things shifting in the marketplace because of all the private equity money, because of the challenges, cutting production, all of that stuff is going to come into play. Now, here's a fact. This is a fact that if you're interested in buying a boat, is dealers and private sellers are still going to be accepting some aggressive offers in March and April. Certain boats, some even selling out of territory where they're in California. Some of the areas that I see most of the boats, there's some areas in Texas around Austin. Water levels are real low. There's a lot of inventory down there. Some up in the Northeast. There's a few pockets in the Midwest where you're seeing it. Canada is having some issues with their political landscape up there. So you're seeing some dealers willing to sell out of territory to get rid of the 23s for sure, and even some of the 2024s. I've heard about customers getting some incredible deals. Now, don't get me wrong, they're not giving the boats away. Boats are still priced high, but there's some aggressive offers. Start the conversation if you find a boat that you want, and that could be a fit. Just understand there's risk on the dealer going out of business. There's risk on warranty if you buy out of territory, the local dealer not being very easy to work with. The 23s, they probably got some dings and some nicks. They've been sitting around a long time. Just understand that's going to be part of the deal, but you can get some great deals. Most of the huge discounts are going to be gone by Memorial Day as 2023s and 24s clear out of the marketplace, which will happen. Now, because we are in prime buying season, I wanted to do something special for you. If you want to get some one-on-one support from me, you can see I'm pretty tapped into what's going on in the marketplace. I do offer one-on-one personal support. So I put together a market update savvy buyer bundle. I'm limited to 10 people because I'm actually going to get on a Zoom call with you, have a conversation, give access to me via email to ask questions. I have people email me all the time asking questions. I just don't have time to give that away for free. My knowledge and expertise is valuable. Be happy to share it with you, but I do need to be compensated for it. So I put together this bundle, $197 for the one-on-one support, but you're also going to get Boat Buyers Academy, the Magic Money Saving Method. I'm going to give you a signed copy of my book that I'll actually send to you. You get the Boat Buyer Toolkit, you get Boater Bootcamp, and you get it all for just $247. So you're going to save $287 And I promise you that if we work together, when I do this, they end up avoiding mistakes. They end up buying with more confidence because they know for sure they're getting some insight that they never would have thought of. And typically they're saving thousands of dollars on the boat because of the magic money saving method, because of my insight, because of my overall view of the market. So if you want to take advantage of that, go to boaterssecretweapon.com/savvy, SAVVY. And I look forward to having a conversation with you. If you found this valuable, give it a thumbs up. Ask your questions down in the comment. I will respond to those because that's public for everybody. One-on-one emails it's only benefiting one person. And my goal is to take my knowledge and share it with as many people as I can for free. If you want one-on-one, this is the way to do it. Talk to you soon.